So, how did I get into this mental mindset or mental mind operation? I wanted to stay on the fringe. I saw that to have occupation in this societal, i.e., to grant or give influence, to take influence, to just have enough so called control over your own faculties, right? That to survive, you didn't want to dig too deep, right? These are unanswerable questions, which now I see everything as answerable. And that's a very dangerous place to be in, because when you're not looking through a microscope, when you don't have a medium, so I'm dealing with social media in the sense that whether or not anybody even watches this, I know 100% that I am putting this out to a computational system, that the words that I say and the references and the historical references of what I've said before, what I've looked into, you could say generally like Cliff High, through a data set of emotionality, you could collectively look at all my searches. Yeah, you're going to see deviations. You're not going to see a representation of what we uphold in this society as a pseudo truism, as to say that we are all judging each other through a collective on in an area of or perturbations of moral superiority. Everyone, in essence, everyone wants to be of the master slave morality, right? So they're trying to sit above the slave morality. And then, even more so, to say that is an admittance that you are neither following virtue, you're not even following an ethos or an area of ethics, and much less you cannot give credence to the understanding that fundamentally you understand the way systems work, right? And Nietzsche's ideas systems, I've discussed that a little bit in prior videos, but it's really important to say because it goes along with the conjecture, what's available to us when we look at our own sociological environmental sciences. We're all anthropologists, we're all studying human history, right? It's only the skeletons aren't the physical skeletons that have been placed there and allowed to be there by the Smithsonian, the Collins elite, um, Tartarian inferences into a master control system. But instead of looking at this and going, oh, I'm just going to spend my entire life following the trail, it's a Graham Hancock, this following along with what's not seen there. Like, okay, this should be there. There should be these peoples here. Let's look for, let's archaeologically see what happened here. Oh, there's a reference to that. Disappeared. And it's really like what I see Graham Hancock doing is he's looking at the phantom phenomenology, uh, the what IQ tests are based on. Like he's seeing it as a big IQ test, and then it makes you wonder: are you supposed to figure this out or not? Like, what's missing? That's what you have to start doing. As you're looking at these symbols and you see likeness, and you see perturbations, changes, you have to, in a minute scalable on a minute scalable level, be able to see the obvious missing link, right? So then you get into, you know, the runes, the symbols, the language model that's spread around the world and depicted on cave paintings, and you see these reoccurring 30 to like 36 or 37 different reoccurring symbols, and you see the cosmology as well, and the understanding of cosmology that's far-reaching, that goes way back, where star systems were understood, depictions of a red planet, and even like it trails me off into these other ringed bodies of planetary bodies. But yeah, you see a localized representation of this taking place inside of us all the time. Um, and it's like, we want you to figure it out. We want you to be superior. We want you to overthrow the permeating dark shadow self, that area of emergent technology where there is a very dark force, and it's in humanity and it's within each one of us, that there's this satanic, for lack of a better term, carrying of the torch. That, look, you could either advance everyone into this collective, and they won't even be alive anyway, so you're not really helping your grandma. It's going to happen way outside that scope of time. You're not even going to be able to help your kids. Did you know that? You taking this journey into truth may not even yield the total truth, and then there will be a default back to this very negative force that's going to ultimately take over. When you talk about, the autocracy and the kakistok, that what emerges, this evil government organization, that the greedy people that understand how to manipulate the main sigil or symbol, which is the seed or the flower or the tree of life, that now you've got heavy sponsorship, universal sponsorship, to subvert and to suppress humanity as a whole, and that in itself has agency, because now you see collectively that there is this production of energy occurring, right, and that it really is a sort of hybrid battery, right, where there's quite a bit of collective energy just from the planet moving and going through its certain stages, and things that we don't even understand, like that we're still trying to figure out on a certain scalable level, certain substrates of magnesium and moscovium and things like this, what they become in a sort of transitory state of high velocity spin, that the SS and the Nazis were studying, and that is alluded to possibly on the swastika, and what that means is like there's this spin, right? Spin energy, the spherical spin energy. And it gets directly into the reality that we seem to share with one another, or not share, compartmentalize, and create a caste system upon, where if you slow everything down, if you slow that spin down enough, you start to see geometrical constants occur. When you get into like Euclidean, non-Euclidean, spherical mathematics, but even more so, you get back into this flower or this tree of life, and even more so expounded upon, which would be Metatron's cube, where you see all these basic geometrical constants begin to take place. And so to just arrive there and say, oh, that's good enough, and through mental mind operation and mental mind focus, we're just going to call this metaphysics on a localized globalist scale of the human body having agency unto itself. But when you get into it, it's about a networking, a connectivity of cybernetic master control, where what's happening right now with Trump, going back to Stalin and Mussolini, Genghis Khan, and all of these other people who have stepped forward, where it's like you wanted to see man, really, which is really woman, right? Everything's kind of reversed, but it's not an exact chiral oppositional juxtaposed self in opposition of itself. There is also a rotation taking place, where if you tried to go back in a unit of time to where you just were, even though it's pre-time, total pre-time unit, you have a fraction of time, and the whole thing is spinning as you're trying to go from point A to point B, let's say, and then you go back. There's this spinning, but then there's this also counterclockwise spinning, and then you get directly into those areas of chirality, where it's like there is a duality, an inference of duality, but that dualistic other universe, trail off into a dualistic system, or look at it through the optics of the many worlds, right? Is that you see that you're not going to end up back in the same place, and now you're basically you're an entered apprentice. You are going through the contractions, the dilation of space time, right? You're in a space within a given time. There's rotation, and then there's the subversion, the subdivision of a counterclockwise movement. And then when you back up even more, you see that, oh, this is another spherical body, right? And the geometry is spinning all these ways, and then it gets into the intricate areas of dimensional hypercubes and things like this, right? Where you're trying to picture what in the F is going on. You're trying to create a rationale, but what you're missing is the localized event, which is a vortex energy string movement in theory, through codified number systems, where the energy is now being transferred on a particular string through a certain mathematical sequence, right, with an adjacency to other diagonal mathematics, right, that are connected in a way that create a matrix, right? And so you're trying to figure out how the machine works, but the more important question to ask is, where does the power come from, and how do I manipulate, or more so than manipulate, unplug the power? And what's been shown throughout history is that we're all afraid of one thing, and that is, even just a Carrington event only hints at this, is the total obnubilation of taking the sun as a direct area of power and influence away from us. And that then you get into the heretical aspect of the first thing people are doing once that sun comes back, once they see the implications of a lack of sunlight, and the type of things, like, you're still going to eat the mushrooms, you know. Water is going to take on a whole different connotation. Everything is affected by this celestial energy. And now that you have the threat of death, you now have, like, if you ever questioned evolution and survival, you're going to see people start to rapidly, go into dynamic movement in order to figure out how the hell they're going to survive. So the oligarchs have this figured out. They have their bunkers, and they have even, thought through scenarios that many of us are totally unaware that they know, right? Where there's something going on with the sun, and that is the biggest thing that we've looked past, is the fact that you unplug the power source. You no longer have a working computational system, even on the most rudimentary scales.